This is a lecture from Open Tuition. To benefit from the lecture, you should download the free lecture notes from opentuition.com.
Human resource planning. Human resource management or human resource planning is defined as a strategic and coherent approach to the management of an organization's most valued resource assets, the people working in it, who individually and collectively contribute to the achievement of its objective. So what we're looking for here, what to get out of this really, is this idea of a strategic approach. Strategic means long term. It means that you're not just kind of firefighting. Somebody leaves in a kind of emergency, you have to recruit people, or suddenly to meet new orders, you have to recruit people who have been not very well trained. If possible, you need a strategy for human resources. How are we going to get the right number of the right people, the right skills, at I suppose the right cost, at the right time? And these are extremely valuable assets, and in a way are becoming more valuable for various reasons, as we'll see below. And the whole problem with human resource planning is getting more difficult to manage. First of all, we have got changes in population. There are, in general, in many countries, fewer young people coming onto the job market. So there's greater competition for young people leaving universities and colleges and the like than there used to be. Very often, to carry on jobs, they now require higher skills levels. And I take you back almost to the opening lecture we had when we looked at the changing shape of the finance structure, where it changed from a triangular shape to more of a hexagonal shape, because we said that many of the jobs at the bottom of the triangle, the less skilled jobs, were disappearing, and we perhaps need more people kind of halfway up the triangle, where people can bring judgment, use their skills and experience. So we have to maybe compete more for these people or train them better, but at any rate it's going to be potentially more difficult to find them. We've talked about moving from manufacturing to service industries. We talked about that in marketing, where when we went from 4 Ps to 7 Ps, one of the extra Ps was people. Because in a service economy, there's much more interaction with your employees, between your customers and your employees, whether face-to-face or on the phone or sending emails or whatever it is. Whereas in a manufacturing environment, most of your employees never meet a customer. Therefore, the employees may have to be different or have different skills or to be trained differently if they are not potentially going to do kind of instant damage to your customer relationship. Because remember, one of the other characteristics of a service is that it is instantly provided. So if somebody says the wrong thing to a customer or treats them in what is perceived to be the wrong way, damage is instantly done and can be very difficult to rectify. There are more frequent job changes. So it is much more common for people maybe to stay 2 or 3 years in a job, then move on to another job to get experience. Long gone is the idea that you could join a company at the age of 16 and stay there till you were 66. And if there are more people kind of leaving halfway up the organization, then there's a greater recruitment burden at the bottom to replace them. And people may react adversely to changes in work-life balance. They may say, I don't want to work overtime, I don't want to work another shift. It depends a little bit on the economy and the market forces at the time, but certainly in economies which are thriving, where there are lots of job opportunities, where there's great competition for labour, if you don't treat people what they regard as fairly, they will move on to a different employer. So the whole business of this management of people is generally more difficult. Also, as we said again before, the human resources of an organization leave every evening and don't necessarily have to come back. They can decide to leave if they're fed up with you. They can move to a competitor, and that's not going to happen most of your other assets in the organization. People are not machines. We'll see that motivation is going to be important. You have to be careful how you manage to inspire them and so on to get the most from them. Now, the human resources cycle can be regarded as this. Like all elements of, I suppose, business organization, it should start with planning. And your human resources plan should essentially be driven by your overall business plan. So if your overall business plan is to double within 5 years, then all other things being equal, you're going to have twice the number of people employed over 5 years. And therefore you can work out, I've got 100 people at the minute, maybe we think 20 of those will go. I need to get up to 200 people, twice the original 100 in 5 years. So I'm going from 80 after wastage up to 200. That's 120 people. Maybe over 5 years, that means recruiting about 24 a year or 25 a year, something of that sort. You need some idea of how many people you need. Whether we have to recruit 2 people, 20 people, 200 people, or 2,000 people is the first step. It's not going to be extremely accurate, but at least you need the ballpark figure. The other type of thing that can affect planning, and something that the syllabus is really about, is of course information technology. Information technology changes the skills needed by people, changes the sort of jobs they'll be undertaking. And I've already said, even in this lecture, you will probably require fewer people of low-level skills and more people of higher-level skills, because the automation lower down allows people to concentrate, if you like, where people are particularly good at operating. After planning, we then need to select. And I suppose before selecting, we have to actually kind of advertise, really. So there can be basically job ads, and that could be in a local paper. Or, of course, very commonly nowadays, there are job pages on the internet. And you can apply, and you can put your CV online and so on. Or you could go to an agency. So employment agencies will typically have lists of people on their books looking for a new job. They will have done a lot of the groundwork and finding these people's qualifications and skills and so on. And you go to an agency, they could maybe hand you a list of 6 people they think might be suitable for the job. So they can cut out a lot of the initial stages and perhaps speed it up. You pay for it, however. You'll probably pay for about 3 months' worth of salary if a person is employed. Anyway, if you were to advertise, you have to, whether in a newspaper or the internet, you want your advert to attract a reasonable number of people, but not too many. You don't want 3,000 replies. You don't want 3 replies. You want maybe 30 replies. And then you will sift through their CVs, and by and large you will shortlist 5 or 6 people to go further. So we have advertising done, we have shortlisting done, and these are the people that are serious contenders now for the job. And inevitably you're going to interview. It could be face-to-face, one-to-one. People are sometimes initially interviewed nowadays over the phone, to save time and travel costs and the like. The interviewing could be one-to-many, there could be an interviewing panel and the like. It depends to some extent on how senior and important the job is. If you are recruiting somebody for a routine job, then maybe just a one-to-one interview would be fine. If you're recruiting somebody to a much more important job or putting them on a fast management stream, then maybe you have the candidate and 3 people to interview them so you get a more balanced, perhaps, view of their abilities. Be warned, interviewing is an extremely bad way, it turns out, of recruiting people. You wouldn't recruit somebody without meeting them, but the interviews can be misleading, particularly if the interviewer hasn't done homework or the interviewer is unskilled, if the interviewer isn't capable of asking kind of probing questions. So quite obviously, if I've, as an interviewer, said, can you handle deadlines, you'll probably say yes. But what the interviewer should then do is to say, well, could you give me an example of where you had a tight deadline to meet within the last year, and then how did you manage that? What difficulties did you find? Did you have to recruit help, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but actually probe a little bit more rather than people just saying, yes, I can do it. Testing. More and more, before you take a gamble on somebody, you will test them. The gamble on someone is not that you can't get rid of them, because generally speaking, if you employ someone and they turn out to be useless, you can get rid of them under most legislation, within 6 months, really. The real problem is if you recruit someone and then you find they're no good, is the time wasted before you get a replacement to that person. So you want to try and get it right first time, and increasingly tests are performed. So it could be a competency test. So if someone says, yes, I can work Excel, well, why not fire up Excel and ask them to do a very simple set of calculations, or they can type Word Windows at 80 words per second, make sure they can do it. Why would you not do that? Other sorts of tests, if somebody's coming to be a web designer, ask them to bring some of their designs. That's a work sampling test. You can give them aptitude tests. You can, these psychological tests, if you like, which are supposed to demonstrate people's potential leadership skills and ability to show initiative and so on, are becoming more common and more accurate. Sometimes the testing will go on for a couple of days in very high stakes exams. If you want to recruit people to put in a fast management stream, you can go to send them away to what's called an assessment centre, where they have got kind of mock committees to run. You give them a big pile of data and ask them to write a report from that. You watch how they interact with other people in a group environment. Ask them to problem solve, ask them to lead a group and inspire the group and so on. This is obviously very expensive, but some companies, for high stakes recruitment, find it's going to be worthwhile. And then references. Usually after you have chosen the person, after you have given them an offer and they have said yes, then you will take up references with their previous employer. Previous employers are usually nowadays reluctant to pass judgment on the people, but you should at least be able to get confirmation of, yes, this person was employed between 2017 and today's date. Yes, this was their job role. Yes, this was their salary. You should be able to get factual information through references. And then you have induction training. Induction training is the person's first day on the job, really. It can be very simple. It can be showing them, the fire exits, giving them a log on to computer system, showing them how the phones work, showing where the canteen and so on is, first aid kits and so on, introducing them to their colleagues to make them feel welcome. If you're being recruited as a trainee auditor, the induction can take 1 or 2 weeks because they have to make sure you can do debits and credits. They have to make sure that you understand the process of auditing. They have to make sure that you understand how to complete the audit documentation. But induction is to make the person feel comfortable and welcome and get them productive as soon as possible so they hit the ground running. After induction, we have the business of trying to get people to perform properly. And performance is really a matter of motivation, or primarily a matter of motivation. Motivation is getting somebody to run towards a target rather than just walking towards it. And we'll see in the next chapter various methods of how to motivate people. Also within it is job design, giving people a job with enough variety and stretch in it to make them feel that they are learning something, to keep them interested in the job. And then after a year, typically, you're going to have appraisals. Maybe somebody's just recruited, the appraisal will be after 6 months, but normally it settles down to after a year. And in the appraisal, you will be thinking of giving them feedback on the past performance down here, and also you'll be thinking of fixing their rewards, telling them what they're going to be paid next year. You'll also find out what they think of you, what they think of the company. You'll find out maybe about some of their interests and how they would like to be developed. And there's development and training. People in jobs find one of the great motivators is that they are personally growing and getting better. So you can ask people what training they think they need. You can set out you're going to be going on these courses and learning these skills and so on over the next year. So to kind of chart their course for next year, what they're going to be doing, what they're going to be learning, what they're going to be paid. And essentially that is the cycle that you go through in management of people. Planning how many people and what sort you need, recruiting them, getting them working quickly, keeping them motivated and keen and inspired during the year, and then performing feedback.